Okay, so this video is going to be optional, but I just want to show you how in this add pizza page, how can you build a modal box. Well, if you are not logged in, it's going to tell you that you need to be logged in first, right? So I'm just going to say here, yeah, so let's just go to add.php, and I'm going to start off with a PHP tag. So the thing is, if I'm logged in, I should be able to see all of this. If I'm not logged in, then I shouldn't be able to see anything. So this is going to be dependent on the session variable that we have created from before, which happens to be inside the nav. So if I go to the nav, I'm just going to close these. So if I go to the nav here, you're going to see that there's a current username, right? So if there is this value, actually, if this was not empty, meaning that the session that contains the key of the username, there's a value from this guy that is stored in this variable. So if this variable is not empty, we are going to see everything as normal. But if the current username was actually empty, so I'm just going to use the empty function, right? So if this guy was empty, I think I need another bracket for the if statement. No, that's it. That's just two curly braces. So if this was empty, then I'm going to produce the modal box, which is just a very large black screen that disallow the user from reaching anything in the page or typing anything anywhere, right? So I'm just going to make a division that is called div, that is going to have a class of box, right? And I'm going to give this division inside of it another division that is going to have content, right? You don't have to stick to the same way I create the modal box in. It's just, these are just design decisions that I'm making, right? Inside of it, I'm going to have a paragraph, right? That will have the following words. You need to be logged in first, right? So this is my paragraph. Now let's just go to that division, and I'm going to make things internally, so you just focus in one place, right? So I'm just going to say the background color is going to be this color, right? So take a look here. So this is how it is. Now notice that if I'm logged in, this is not going to appear, but let's just go with that, and I'm going to grab that box, and then I'm going to grab the content, and then I'm going to grab the paragraph, and I'm going to say that this is going to be having a font of 130 pixels, right? And it's going to be having what can we give it? Something like the font family, for example, Tahoma, like that. All right, so we need this to be persistent. We don't really want it to move like this, right? So I'm just going to give it a position of fixed, and if I refresh this, something has flowed over. There is a defect. The background is gone, so there is some kind of a flow. So I'm just going to say overflow hidden. Refresh. This wouldn't be fixed so quickly. Actually, we need to give this guy to the box itself, right? So we want the box itself to be having all of these things, right? So if I want the box, the division itself to be fixed, and to be just to be fixed like that, right? Not the paragraph. I just want the box to be fixed, right? And the overflow hidden, if I take it away, it might not appear that it is doing anything, but believe me, this is going to reduce the stuff that is going to be bugging you, like on the long run. So it's not going to hurt to have it there, right? So now let's add some positioning. So I just want this to be positioned at the top. So I'm just going to add a 0 pixel here, just for it to be in the top, right? And I want this to have the width of 100%, and from the left as well. I don't want it to be moving anyway, so that's it, right? And let's see, let's give it some margin. Let's give the box itself some margin. So I'm just going to give it a margin of 4% up and bottom. I think this is not the box, so I'm just going to give this to the content, since I want this black screen to expand as much as it's possible. So I will grab the content here, and I will give it a margin of top and bottom of 4%. And this division, which is the content, I want everything to be centered inside of it, which is the paragraph in this case. So I'm just going to say auto, right and left, right? And then give that paragraph a text align of center, All right, you can really take this center away, it's not that important. Okay, what can we do next? We can make sure that the width of the box is 100%. So let's just give the width to be 100%. Let's see, now let's make the height to be 100%, and this is it. Looks good, right? Now it doesn't really look that good, but we'll just make it look good, right? So I'm just going to use a font called Arial. They are both so bad, like I can't even describe how bad they are. So I'm just going to go to Google Fonts, and where's Google Fonts? Google Fonts. And I'm going to grab that Nonito or Lato, whatever. Alright, so let's just grab this one and then place it here, and then use it instead of that Arial, and go there and check this. This is a little bit better. Let's give it some thickness, so font weight of 600, and let's give it a color of white. Alright, so maybe a little bit more would make things better. You need to be logged in first, or let's just stick to 130. This is good. Okay, now we can add some padding to the inner division. So the inner division is going to have a padding of 20 pixels. Let's see this. Alright, so padding from everywhere, up and bottom and everywhere. Right, now I will restrict the paragraph width to be a little bit smaller. So let's say that it's going to be 80%. Okay, this is looking a little bit nicer. Alright, now you want to make sure that this box is going to be over everything. So I know that it is by default it is over everything, so since it's before any of these forms, right? But I just want to make sure that this is happening, so I'm just going to have something called z index of 1. This is essentially the same if you want to if you went to your Word document. In your Word document, you're gonna see something like bring to the back, bring to the front. So z index of 1 is controlling the z index or the third axis. So it's doing the same thing. It's as if you're saying bring this to the top or to the front. All right. So this is what the z index that has the value of 1 doing. 1 means that bring it to the top. So it's essentially it's going to be the same thing. I'm going to go to my font awesome collection, and I'm going to search for the cross button because I need something like a closing tag, right? So I'm just search for close, and there's this one. There was some, yeah, this one is neat. This is like, it has window close or window close. I'm going to take this one. It's called times. Right, and I happen in the video of the 3 hours, I happen that I have already included the font awesome library, which is this one. Okay, now I can add a span, and that span is going to have a class of, I'm going to call it close, right? And inside that span I'm going to have an icon, and this icon is going to be having a class of fast, then font awesome of times, and let's see how this is looking like. And here you go, it has a class of red because I think we have already previously we have made another icon. So I'm just going to give it a class, another class that's called close icon, right? So close icon is going to be having a color of white, like that. Okay, and I'm going to maybe I should push this from the left a little bit for the paragraph. So I'm just going to go to the paragraph and add a padding to the left of 10%. So refresh. Well, this is looking good. It seems that it is in the center, right? Now what we can do is that we play with the span a little bit. So I'm just going to grab that span, which is inside box, which is inside content. So grab the span that has the class of close and give it a font size of 40 pixels just to make it a little bit bigger. Now that was unexpected. I think I need to give that font size to the icon itself. Yeah, like this. Alright, and now the span, I can just make it float to the left. You can use positioning for that, but I'm just going to use the easiest thing to do is floating this to the right like this. So it's going to be there. Now I will add some padding from the right. I'm going to start with 1% here and see how this is looking. So I'm just going to go to have this at the bottom, inspect this guy, and let's start with, where is it? So let's start with increasing this a little bit. So yeah, maybe 5 is going to work. Okay, so I'm just going to use 5 for that. Alright, and this is it. The only thing left is to add some blur at the background, behind the scenes, right? So in order to do that, I need to have the container. So I need to have all of the stuff behind, or that is outside that division that we've just created. So everything that is outside the division, which is the box division here, literally everything, I need it to be inside a container. Once this is inside container, I can give it a blur effect, right? So I'm just going to have the h1 after that division, and I'm going to wrap everything inside a container. So let's say container, and finally close that container there. And now I don't really need the class. I'm not going to do anything for the class, but let's just say, let's try it. So let's say container, right, and give it a blur effect, right? So let's just say, yeah, you can give it a blur effect using something called filter, and then you can add blur. I think this needs some value, so I'm just going to hit any value. I don't remember what is the scale for this one, to be honest. Let me just check. I think the scale is 100, so I need to put, I think I just need to put pixels. Yeah, the pixels was the one missing here. So 3 pixels is going to do the blur effect for you. So this is going to work. One last thing is that whenever I hover over this box or this span, I want to feel that I can click it. So it feels that it's clickable. So I will go to the span, which is basically the close here, this one. And I'm going to say hover. And once I hover over it, I just want to be able to click it, so, or feel that I can click it. So I'm just going to give it a cursor of pointer, right? So whenever you stand on it, refresh, you can see that it's something like a pointer here. Alright, so I'm going to use very quick JavaScript here to say if I click on this button, I want to be transferred to the sign up page, for example. Since you can't really close and start typing whatever you want to type in the add pizza page, since this defies all of what we have been doing. So the point is, you can't access the add pizza. So what you need to do is to sign up or log in, right? So I'll just close it and go to the sign up page, right? Or the login page. I'm just going to choose the sign up page in this case. So yeah, so I'm just going to go there and add a JavaScript file. I'm going to, let me just copy from above here, and I'm going to call this the what can we call it? Modal box.js. So I'm just going to add a file called modalbox.js. Now I want to grab that span so I can click on it. So I'm just going to add an ID of the same. I'm going to give it close, right? So I'm just going to say document.getElementById and close, and just save this guy in a variable called close. Now what we want to do is that this close span, right, we are going to add an event listener to it. So whenever we click on it, we want to be triggering this callback function. So this callback function, all it's going to do is that it's going to transfer me to the sign up page.php. So let's try this one. Refresh, go there, and here you are in the sign up. Now if I logged in, let's try and see. If I go to the add pizza, I should see this by default, right? So if I go to login and log in with anyone here, go to the add pizza, that's a problem. You still see the blur effect. So we want to add the blur effect only if the modal box was showing, right? So if the modal box, so I'm logged out right now, right? So I'm just going to grab the developer tools here and take a look at this. If you are logged out, you're going to see, where is the, yeah, this is the add pizza. If you're logged out, you're going to see that this is the box, the division that has the box class. It's going to appear, right? But if you are logged in, let me just log in here. Let me just go to add pizza and show you. So this is the box, right? So if I want to grab that box, I'm just going to give it an ID. Let me just give it an ID from there. Okay, so refresh. It has an ID now. So let's say document.get element by ID and add box. So now you have the box here, right? So I'm just going to save this in box, right? So box contains something. Now if I went and logged in with someone, login, now go to add pizza, you wouldn't see the box, right? You can't really see the box here, right? And notice that there is another error that's telling you that it cannot call the event listener. The problem here is that in the modal box JS, we are trying to add an event listener to a close element, which is the span element that has the close class, and this is returning null. So if we are logged in, remember the conditional, if we are logged in, so this is not empty, there is no division at all of this block is not going to be executed, so there is no division that has the ID or class of box anymore, which means that you do not have inside of it a span that has a class of close anymore. So this is going to return a null value. So it's telling you I cannot add to a null value an event listener. This is the error that we're reading here, right? So it cannot read a property of add event listener of null, right? So we want to make sure that we will only add this event listener to the close span if the close span is there, and we want to make sure that the box division is there to begin with, right? So I want to make sure that this division, which is the box, is there to begin with before I can even add an event listener to this close icon, right? That's one. The other thing is that I want to add this blurring effect to the container, the rest of the elements, once and only if there is a division that has the class of box. If this box division is not there, I don't want to blur anything. All right. So let's see how can we do that. All right. So to do that, I just want to show you something. So if I'm logged in, right, I should not be able to see that division at all. So there's the division that is called box is not there. So if I did the same thing from before, the box is going to be having null. So this is the value that I'm going to play on, right? So if I logged out, I go to add pizza, I see this by default. So I just want by default to this to be displayed by none, right? And I will display it as block once there is no user logged in, right? So I will say here that this box class is going to be displayed display none. I think I've defined display none in this. There is no, I think there is a display none somewhere. Yeah, it has a display none, the styles add. So I'm just going to add a display none class. So let's see this. Okay, so by default, if there is no user logged in, right, the box is there, but it's displayed as none, right? We want to display it as block the minute that the box is there, meaning that there is no user logged in currently. So we want to display it, right? So this is what I'm going to do. So I'm just going to go to my JavaScript here, and I'm going to make a function that's called show modal box. I'm going to say, right, if I need to grab the box itself first, so I'm just going to give that box an ID, which I did. Now I need to grab that box document dot get element by ID and take that ID. Now I'm going to say if boxes is not null, meaning that it is there, meaning that no one has already logged in, there's no one logged in, right? So if it is there, and remember by default I gave it a display none, so it should not be visible. So I'm just going to change that using class list, then replace, and I'm going to take away that display none, and hopefully in the styles add I have display block. I don't, so let me just add it here. Let me just add it outside. Display block, display block. Then I'm going to replace it with display block like that. This is the first thing, right? And the second, I want to give that blurry effect to the container. So by default, I don't want the container to have that blurry effect. So I don't want the container, which is the division that contains everything, by default to have that blurry effect. So I'm just going to have this in a class called blur. Alright, so this is a class called blur. So if I went there, you shouldn't see anything blurred by default, right? Now I want to grab the container itself and add this class, which is blur, to it once the modal box is viewed, once there is the modal box is showing. So if there is the box, meaning that there is nothing, no one has logged in, so just display the box, which is the background, this black background, and the message you need to be logged in, and then blur the stuff in the behind, right? So I want to add to this division ID, and I'm going to call it container as well. I'm going to grab that container, and I'm just going to call the container blur it like that. Document.get element by ID container, and then I'm just going to say blur it dot give it a class list, and then add blur it, right? Okay, and then add here blur the class, right? And then call that show modal box. So let's see how things are looking. Add pizza, you need to be logged in, right? Now close, go to the sign up. Now log in, go to add pizza, nothing is blurred, so everything is working, right? Cool. Now I'm just going to change something in the navigation bar. I just want this to be search, so I'm just going to change this to search. Maybe I'll do this in the next video, right? But for the time being, let's add some persistency. So I want, if I'm on the menus, I want this to be stayed on hovered like that. I just want the background to be as it is when I'm in the menu, just to indicate which page I am in, right? So we can do this really easy. Now to do this, just remember one thing. The link that we are at, so if I click on menus, right? If I click on menus, this is the link of that anchor tag. So if I inspect this, you're gonna see that this is the href. This is the href that is taking me to this website. So this is the reason I'm seeing this part inside my URL in the browser, right? So let me just grab the one of these links, right? So let me just say document.get element by tag name, and let's grab any one of them. So I just want to see what am I having here. So this is, for example, this is the first link, so I'm going to grab the first one. So let me just take away this. So I'm just going to first take the first link, right? So this is link 1. So link 1, if you examine the href, you're gonna see that this is the href of the link 1, right? And if you do the same thing via JavaScript, so for example, I want to know what is the current link that I am at, what is the current URL. So you know that you can use the window object, so window location dot href, And notice this, it's going to give you the same exact link. So window location href is going to give you the same exact URL that the href is returning from that link. So let me try another link, right? Let me go to this one, and let's say window href, okay? And let's now grab the let's grab the document dot get element. Let me just hit arrow up like that, and let's grab the second one, right? And let's check this link. Let's say dot href, and notice this, it's the same link that the window that location dot href is going to return to you. So we can use this information to say that if the link that I am on, like that, which can be grabbed from this, if it does equal to an anchor tag that has an href, right? That has an href that is equal to the current link that I'm on, then just grab that link and give it a class. And this class, we are going to predefine it to be having some kind of a background color. This is it. This is the whole logic. Okay, so let's do this. I'm going to create a file. I'm going to call it persist hover.js, like this. Why did I make 2 underscores? Let me just rename this. I'm sorry. Persist hover, like that, right? And I'm going to make a function. First of all, I'm going to grab the current URL. So I'm just going to use the window object, and I'm going to save this in a variable called URL. So this is the current URL. And I'm going to make a function that goes through every link in the page, right? So persist, or I'm just going to call it add background, like this. All right, so I'm going to say the following. First of all, let's grab all of the links in the document. So get elements by tag name, and grab all of the anchor tags, and I'm going to save this in a variable called links. If this is cool, let's continue. Now we are going to make a loop as follows. So I'm just going to say for every, as long as the counter is less than the length of these links, so maybe you have like 15 or 17 links, I will do the following. If the current link that I am at, using its own href, is it equal? If it's equal to the URL, then I'm going to grab that current link, right? And I'm going to give it a class of, let's say, I didn't define that class yet, so I'm just going to have this class. Let me have that class in the navigation styles, because remember, this file, this persist hover, is going to be in every page. So this class that we are going to be adding needs to be existent in every page. And what styles do we have in every page? Of course, the styles of the nav. So I'm just going to add this class there. So this is going to be add background. This is going to be a class, add background color, right? So this is going to be a background color, and let's see what we are hovering. I'm going to use the same value that we are hovering with on the links. Okay. All right. So I'm just going to add this class to them here, like so. And this is it, right? So if we're done, I'm just going to call add background. And then in every page, I'm going to start with the menu here. Let's just include that one. Script, and then source JS, then persist hover.js, and let's see if this works. Go to menus. Well, that doesn't seem to work, but I think it's a problem with XAMPP, so I'm just going to close it and open another browser. Alright, so let's try Mozilla. No, not like this. Oh, I need to start Zambia. And here you go, this is the persistence, it's there the menus and it's working. Let me add this to every single page now. So I'm just taking the script and in the admin page as well, in the details page, in the add page, in the login page, and finally in the sign up page. Alright, so let me just save these. Now let's go there and check. See, the hover is everywhere. It's persistent. That's really good.